Good morning, afternoon, and evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Zachary Nolan. Carter Nolan is behind the camera.
As always.
And we are covering the Seattle expansion draft. A team that looks pretty unrecognizable than we thought it would, and it is the most leaked event since your faucet. So, going into that, let's look at all the draft picks. Let's see where they could go in the future. So let's start with the goaltending. The tandem of Vitek Vanacek from the Washington Capitals, Chris Driedger from the Florida Panthers, and Joey Daccord from the Ottawa Senators. Now, people, for some reason, thought that the Seattle Kraken were just crazy for not picking Carey Price, even though he's paid $10 million for the next 4 to 5 years when he's in the decline. Don't give me that playoff price argument. You need to make it there first. Honestly. And also, they would have been using him as a backup because Chris Driedger was signing there with the intent of becoming the starting goaltender. Yes, he had a rough playoffs, but honestly, he had a solid regular season. And this tandem, I actually kind of like. Joey Daccord in his limited starts in Ottawa seemed pretty good. Vitek Vanacek, not bad at all in Washington. I think the thing that really annoys people a lot about this goaltending tandem is there's no stableness to it. There's no necessary structure. It's a lot of unknowns. Like, the entire tandem is a group of unknowns. Whether or not, where is their ceiling, where is their floor? We don't know it yet. I think that this tandem will do pretty solid, although I think if Driedger does fall into a bit of a slump, it could really affect the rest of the tandem moving forward. But we'll see. Now, moving on to defense. This is where the Kraken did very well, in my opinion, actually. Hayden Fleury from the Anaheim Ducks, Cale Fleury from the Montreal Canadiens, Jeremy Lauzon from the Boston Bruins, Will Borgen from the Buffalo Sabres, Mark Giordano from the Flames, Vince Dunn from the Blues, Adam Larsson from the Oilers, Jamie Alexiak from the Stars, Gavin Bayreuther from the Columbus Blue Jackets, Dennis Cholowski from the Detroit Red Wings, Curtis McDermott from the LA Kings, and Carson Soucy from the Minnesota Wild. This D group that they picked was solid, honestly. Adam Larsson, who too many people really just relate to him in contrast to Taylor Hall, who has so much more name value, and because they were traded 1-for-1. Larsson had a great season last year. His numbers were solid. He was a really good shutdown option. Now, granted, for most of these deals, I don't know how the terms will look in the later stages, but for a team that apparently wants to somewhat be competitive now, those are solid. You also have Jamie Alexiak, who is just a big body. I wouldn't have paid him, I'd maybe pay him $1 million less, or at least a couple years less, but that's okay, because when you get to the later half, things happen, the cap kind of moves around and stuff like that. But, and add on to Vince Dunn. Vince Dunn is really good defensively. Now, people were like, why didn't they pick Vladimir Tarasenko? I think this team, maybe I'll talk more about it in the forwards, but Vince Dunn is such a solid defensive option that does not come around so often. And he's just so effective in so many aspects of the game. I really think that he's a solid value pick. And he also doesn't have the caveat of having injury problems like Vladimir Tarasenko does, who actually had to get surgery, or has to still. Cholowski, solid prospect there. Soucy is solid bottom for pairing. Curtis McDermott had a rough analytics season, but you know what? Like, fine. Mark Giordano, of course, will probably be at least an assistant moving into this year. Even though he is getting older, his numbers have stayed very consistent. And I think at that point, guys who can be somewhat consistent there, you need somewhere around your roster. They don't really have a lot of it on forward, so at least having some of it on defense and guys like that as well. Jeremy Lauzon will be very good. I love the pickings for Hayden Fleury and Cale Fleury. I like both of those two guys as young defensive prospects, and even Hayden Fleury, who's played quite a bit with Carolina. He has so much potential. He just needs to reach for it. His ceiling is high. So that about covers the defense there that I'll go into. The forwards now. Now, this is where it gets kind of controversial, I guess. Tyler Pitlick, who's already been flipped to the Calgary Flames, I believe.
For a fourth round
pick. Thank you. Also, there's other trades here. This could become out of date really quickly, but let's hope it doesn't. John Quinville from the Chicago Blackhawks, Morgan Geekie from the Carolina Hurricanes, Jonas Donskoy from the Colorado Avalanche, Cole Lynn from Vancouver, Jared McCann from the Toronto Maple Leafs, but really just Penguins too. Mason Appleton from the Jets, Yanni Gord from the Lightning, Alexander True from the San Jose Sharks, Brandon Tanev from the Pittsburgh Penguins, Carson Thorninski. I just called him Mr. Yikes on the stream because it's just a tough name. Colin Blackwell from the Rangers, Jordan Eberle from the Islanders, Nathan Bastian from the Devils, and Calle Yarncroke from the Predators. So, right out of the gate, let's get this out of the way. A lot of teams projected for them to pick guys into win now mode. Here's the problem with that. What I have is a lot of those rosters, if you don't win in those first 2 years, those contracts catch up with you massively. Like Domi was available, Johansson, Duchesne, JVR, that's the one that I don't get. But other than that, Tarasenko, even got, it was just so many name value there. The problem is that once you put yourself near the cap ceiling, if your team underperforms, you're dead in the water. You're so dead in the water. What happens is when you do that, you essentially become the Arizona Coyotes, who have a lot of cap problems, even though they do continue to take on dead contracts and stuff like that. But they have a lot of cap problems, but they can't do anything because they went after guys that they thought would become better or play up to that potential, and they overpaid them massively. OEL is an example. Even Clayton Keller's contract is not good. Now, what do I think of this forward core? I like it because, honestly, I'm of the mind that you need to plan at least for the future. I think there's a lot of things we don't know. For example, the Philadelphia pick makes no sense. There has to be something there. There's no way they picked a guy when JVR was on the market who has a 1% chance of making the NHL over JVR. JVR is an NHL player, and you picked a guy with a 1% chance of making the NHL. I don't get it. That's the one I don't get. But the other ones, like Appleton, can play up possibly. Jordan Eberle will be a factor for sure. I love the Colin Blackwell pick. A lot of these picks I don't hate, but the thing is that it doesn't seem like they really have a driving force behind it, other than let's somewhat plan for the future type thing. Brandon Tanev, of course. A bunch of Penguins fans were upset, but why didn't you protect him? Protect him over Teddy Bluger then. Also, the people saying, this is amazing. This is amazing. People saying, Leafs fans were saying, why do you protect Hull over McCann? Hull is a defenseman. McCann is a forward. You can't do that. Unless you're telling me that they decided to plan... unless they decided to protect way more defensemen than they should have. Then you have a case. But other than that, no. But Jonas Donskoy, solid veteran presence, but the forwards will be lacking, I think. But I also think that they're not really planning, I said going into this that they should probably be at best wild card 2, wild card 1. At this rate, they're probably going to be at the bottom here. But I don't think this is necessarily the wrong choice. People were comparing this to Vegas. This is not a fair comparison. Vegas was the first ever expansion team in a long time to not come in pairs. Expansion teams used to come into the league in pairs.
The first in 17 years.
And then what would happen is they would really fuck over those teams coming in by putting so many people protected. You were pretty much either picking an AHLer or a bottom sixer at best, and you just can't pick from that. And then also too, a lot of teams were thinking that they were planning for the nows, not the futures, for example. And so they were willing to give away draft picks and prospects and thinking, well, okay, we're probably in win now mode. I think we're okay. No! Wrong! For example, the Anaheim Ducks thought they were okay. They would make the playoffs, then they would lose, and then they would start their decline. It was right on the edge of their decline was when they gave up Shea Theodore. Even people like the Minnesota Wild gave up Tuck and Holla because they thought they were still on that precipice. They thought they were there. Winnipeg did it, but they gave up that because they were literally 1 year off of becoming second in the league. Nashville gave up that depth piece in Neal, but still, it's teams not understanding where they were in the league and what was their place. Now, teams are okay, well, now I know that you're looking for a lot of things for the future as well as the present, which should be an automatic, but apparently no, it wasn't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a guy that will only help you now. Right now. Matt Duchene will only help a team now. With his contract, it's way too long to even take on that cap hit and then pretty much in a couple of years be shuffling him down to the bottom 6. For example, guys like Jeff Skinner was not protected. Just because he makes a lot of money doesn't mean we have to pick him. The only people that they really ignored that in those formalities was teams where they usually pick defense because they wanted more steady presence. And based on the two teams that have, like the two Stanley Cup champion teams that the Lightning have brought up, and the two teams that also worked with them, that defense makes sense, that mindset. But honestly, going forward, I don't hate this. I hate that everything was goddamn leaked. That sucked. But you know what? Going forward, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, just one quick thing. Also, with them picking a bunch of like guys that don't have the craziest name value, that also helps like players actually like step up and start overperforming.
Right, like you're giving a lot of guys exposure, and that's good.
Exactly.
But yeah, honestly, that's where we're going to end this video. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new to the channel. We really do appreciate it. Leave a like as well. Comment down below your thoughts on this team, who you would have drafted maybe. Maybe you can tell me I'm wrong. That's totally fine. We're going to never always agree on things here. That's totally cool. Check out some of the other videos on our channel, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.